Welcome to the new kitchen. This is where all the videos are going to be taking place now. I know I said last video that my new video would be in the new kitchen, and here we are. We're still getting settled in, but we are happy to be here. I haven't got my cast iron on the wall yet, but that's okay. This week I was going to do a talking video, so it'll be not really a how-to, but a little bit more on my gluten-free journey and just tips in getting started gluten-free, cooking from scratch, tips on what to do when you go to a restaurant, which restaurants that I know of that have things that are gluten-free, and some tips on when you go to somebody's house. How do you, especially somebody new that doesn't necessarily know that you're gluten-free, or if it's a new diet change that you've had to do recently and the people that you do know don't know yet. So what do you do in those instances? And so I'm gonna kind of give you my background and a little bit of experience on how it's worked for me. So when I was 5 years old, I was diagnosed with celiac, and actually at the time, gluten-free was not even a thing. Celiac was not even a thing. They did know about it, but when my mom brought it up to them that my aunt, her sister, had celiac, the doctors had told her that there is absolutely no way that I would have that. It's not hereditary, it's very uncommon, and they didn't know a lot about it. Lo and behold, I think I officially got diagnosed with a blood test, and then I ended up doing the genetic testing as well just a couple years ago as an adult. And I carried the gene, my blood test came back positive, all of the things. But here is one thing, less than 1% of people are true genetic celiac. So that is something that I think is getting misdiagnosed now. I mean, back when I was diagnosed, it wasn't even a thing. Now I feel like everybody has celiac, and I have my own opinions on that. I know a lot of people have some opinions on that. One of them being just what's in our foods now. Nowadays, what's in our flour, what they've done to our flour, all of that. If you are interested in whole grains and what that does for our body, and if you need to be gluten-free or don't need to be gluten-free, my friend Andrea and I over at dearmark23.com, we put out a course on whole grains that are gluten-free, because those are beneficial. And then we also did modules on just whole grains in general, what they do for your body, the history behind it, and all of that. So if you're interested in that, I'll drop that in the description. But back when I was diagnosed, it wasn't even a thing. You couldn't go to a restaurant and ask for a gluten-free menu. You could barely go to a health food store and find gluten-free options. They just wasn't there. And my mom did a really great job of not having me miss out on things. She would make things from scratch even when there wasn't anything to make from scratch, really. I mean, she couldn't just go buy an all-purpose gluten-free flour bun. She had to make her own. So we could go to the health food store and you could get a rice flour, a tapioca starch, that kind of stuff, but you had to build it yourself. They didn't have these blends yet. Now we fast forward to now, and you can go anywhere, and I feel like gluten-free is everywhere. So my first tips for you would be eating out. So if you want to eat out, then there are some tricks that you need to know about. And one of them is most restaurants now have either a little GF next to them, or they will have on their menu things that are gluten-free. They'll some way let you know that they're gluten-free. There are also restaurants where you can just go and ask, do you have a gluten-free menu? And that is something that I learned many, many, many years ago, is even if they don't readily offer it to you, a lot of times they have an allergy menu, a whole separate menu. So when they bring you to your table and seat you and give you your menu, always ask, do you have a gluten-free menu? And a lot of times they will say yes, and they'll go get one for you, or they'll say no, but here's what the ones that are gluten-free on the menu. Because it's such a big thing, always ask for a gluten-free menu. Places like Red Robin, you don't necessarily see it on their menu, but they have a gluten-free bun, so you just have to ask, and they will keep it very clean and safe. So my children love to go to Red Robin's because their fries are gluten-free and they have gluten-free buns. So you can get a burger just like everybody else. There's different, here in Missouri, there's different fast food places like Culver's, and I'm thinking if there's anything else. Chick-fil-A, which is everywhere, they also have gluten-free buns, so if you're looking for something fast food-wise, we don't do a lot of that stuff, but if we do, then those are places good to know. Like I said, Culver's out here has gluten-free buns, and they have good food that you can put onto the gluten-free bun too. And they'll do it safe. I'm not sure, when we lived in California, Togo's was a thing. I haven't seen one out here, but they have a gluten-free wrap. So if you go to a sandwich shop like Togo's, ask for the gluten-free wrap. They will ask you if it's an allergy or if it's a preference. Just say it's an allergy. They will completely clean and change out their cutting boards, knives, gloves, everything so that they can make you a gluten-free sandwich wrap. So those are just some options when you go out and about, and if you choose to eat out, and how you can do that safely and know that you are getting a good product. Okay, so what do you do if you're heading off to a friend's house and they're cooking you a meal? So this is something that I've had to grow into, because a lot of times you don't want to be a bother. I never wanted to be a bother. I never wanted to tell somebody, oh, I can't have that. But I think what's worse is if you don't say anything and you show up at their house and they've made all this food that you can't eat, and then you say, I can't eat that. And now they've went through all this work and you can't even enjoy what they've done for you. And so I don't feel it's rude to tell somebody that you have to be gluten-free. Now, here's what I always tell them is we have to eat gluten-free, but don't stress about it, because a lot of times people are like, I don't know how to cook gluten-free, and that's okay. I always will say, well, what are you making? And I can bring the substitute. I'll bring whatever it is that's not. Or you can ask me anything. So a lot of times, say they're making some kind of meat, and they'll send me text messages of the ingredients for like the spices that they use, and a lot of them are gluten-free, so it's okay. And then I'll say, well, why don't I just provide a side? Then I know we have a dish that we can eat. I usually always, without even asking, bring some form of a dessert for my girls. So I'll make a batch of cookies and I'll bring like 3 cookies, or I'll bring a whole batch of cookies, because my gluten-free cookies, you can't even tell they're gluten-free. I'll drop them in the description. I'll make a whole batch of cookies and I'll bring them to share with everybody. Whether they ask me to bring a dessert or not, I bring them. And then my kids can eat them, and everyone can eat them, and they're delicious, and I know that we have a dessert. The other thing is, a lot of times I'll invite them to my house. I'll do the cooking. Or if you're going to an event that you're not really sure what they're serving, and it's not necessarily somebody or a good friend's house that you're going to, or even just somebody that you just met and you're going over there, you just became friends, and they don't really know how you eat and all of that. If you're going to an event like a wedding, a fundraiser dinner, or anything like that, I always eat beforehand. I never go to those events hungry, because when you do, and you can't eat anything there, that makes it really difficult. So I always eat something ahead of time. I know my belly is full. If there is something that I can have, then I'll just give myself a little smaller plate, not a super big plate. But that's when I'm at an event, like a public event or a wedding or something where I don't know what they're serving. But a lot of times, if I'm just going to somebody's house, then I will, just communicate with them, let them know. And a lot of times people are very accommodating. Okay, so this is all fine and dandy, but what happens when you are just getting started? How do you even know how to cook gluten-free? And I do have a video out on my top 10 tips for getting, that's a tongue twister, top 10 tips, getting started with cooking from scratch gluten-free. But a good place to start is there, and I'll drop that video in the description. But another good place to start with is to get your pantry stocked. If you have the right things in your pantry, then you can pretty much essentially make anything. Find a really good gluten-free flour blend, which I have one, and I make it homemade, and I can link that in the description. It's in my digital cookbook, which I'll link. If you're gonna buy one from the store, I recommend Cup for Cup or Better Batter, and I can link those in the description. Having that on your shelf, you can essentially change out any recipe and make it gluten-free. your favorite brownie mix, your favorite cookie mix, your favorite cake mix, all of that, and then you can switch it by just changing the flour. So definitely start there. Get your pantry stocked with good gluten-free, just flours in general, like brown rice flour, white rice flour, tapioca starch, get some gluten-free oats, get some cornstarch, all of those things, which you will see in my video on my top 10 tips for getting started, that I always keep in bulk on hand because you can use them in so many things, in your breads and in all kinds of stuff. I do have bread recipes on the blog, which will be very helpful if you are looking to get started on it. And a lot of my recipes are very simple. They're a normal recipe and you just change out one ingredient to make it gluten-free. So my best tip for you is to get your pantry stocked so that when creativity strikes, you are ready to go and you can get it going. So don't stress about it. Take it one day at a time and start one thing at a time. Learn how to make something and experiment. There's going to be so many failed attempts, and that's okay, because I fail still to this day in the kitchen, and you just bounce back, you learn from it, and you try again. So I hope these tips were helpful for you. I hope that you got some ideas on what to do when you go out to a restaurant, when you go to a friend's house, and all of that. And I hope that you just learned on giving you the confidence to just get started, to try it, because gluten-free is a journey. And if you were newly diagnosed, it's not as scary as you think it's going to be, and it's not as hard as you think. There can be tricky things. Sometimes it's tricky. Sometimes there's just flops for no explanation whatsoever. But for the most part, it is something that you can learn to do, and the food can taste good. I would say 80% of what I cook is gluten-free, to my husband who is not gluten-free, and to our hired guy who eats 2 meals a day with us who is not gluten-free. And they don't even know. They don't even taste the difference. I do make them their own bread, and a lot of times I make them their own pasta, but even the pasta, a lot of times I cook regular pasta. Having a good brand of gluten-free pasta makes up all of the difference. So I hope these tips were helpful for you. Make sure to like and subscribe to the video. I send out one new video every single week. Jump on over to the blog and put in your email over there. I send out an email a week with all different kinds of recipes and different things over there. And welcome to my new kitchen, and we have a lot of videos coming up with some good things in store. So I hope this video was helpful, and we'll see you next time. Take care.